Doctor, going back to this signal-to-noise ratio, I know you said that you guys order that from the vendor and the program comes and it does all this information and prints it out. Do you ever check it to see, for instance, if the computer's giving you correct data, either on the graph, either on the lettering or on the signal-to-noise ratios?
No. I don't actually know how to do that.
Well, have you ever, for instance, looked at these signal-to-noise ratios on the 4 chemical bases and see if the computer is averaging it correctly?
No.
I will tell you, and I think you can tell quickly by looking at this, the average signal is wrong here on number 1. It shows an average of 442 when the correct average, if you add it up and divide by 4, is 341. I'll just represent that to you. Do you know what would account for that?
No.
I mean, the computer is programmed to take that number and that number and that number and that number and simply divide by 4 to get the average, correct?
If you know.
I don't know that that's what it does.
Well,
It sounds like you do, but I don't.
well, you know, you did about 30 minutes ago when I asked you that, if that's what it was. Are you telling me you don't know that that's what it is?
I don't know that the average signal is those 4 divided by 4. That would be logical.
It would be logical, but now you're telling me you don't know if that's it or not.
I never understood the question before if that was what you were asking.
It was. So tell me what the average signal represents if you are making, as a part of your evaluation and diagnosis, these numbers, then tell me what that average signal signifies.
It's just a number that I've learned from my training that it should be over a couple hundred in order to indicate you're getting good, clean signals. And sometimes it can be over 1,000, depending on the kind of samples you're analyzing. But I don't actually look at the data that way. I just look at it in general and then look at the sequence itself.
Again, I'm going to look at this average signal.
If that's what's supposed to be happening, there's a problem here.
If what's supposed to be happening?
If the average signal is actually those 4 numbers divided by 4, then that's not correct, and there's something wrong with the way it's doing the calculations.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you something and then get to the question, but I'm not, because I don't want you to think that I'm misleading you. I will tell you that there are average signals that are in these documents that are the function of the average of those 4 numbers, just like logically you said earlier you'd expect it to be, and I guess logically what somebody would think. There are occasions where that's really the case. It averages those 4 numbers
Properly.
Properly. But there's cases, as I've already pointed out to you now, as you can
clearly
see,
doesn't.
where it's not. Now, do you have any explanation for that?
No.
Would that indicate to you potentially some kind of problem with the computer?
Yeah,
Yes?
I would assume so.
Okay. We're on embryo 3.
Embryo 3. Okay. This whole set's
Are those now, is this an example of ones that are the same? I know the handwriting is a little different. I'm trying to, right now, I want to know if the black and white to color studies are the same.
Yes. Yes.
And the diagnosis on this one was what?
No mutation observed.
So it's normal. First choice for transfer.
I don't know if that was what was said, but yes.
I think it was.
Okay.
Again, if we pull up the header for me. Four signals have check marks above them. Again, you believe that would represent somebody in the lab on June the 17th of '06 having checked those off as they're doing the analysis, correct?
Yes.
And they did not check the average signal as they did on the other one, and I will tell you that I think the math is right. This is one of those cases where the math is right. The math is 562. That looks about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Now, this color version, which is supposed to be the same as the black and white version, pull the header up for me. You see the G signal is the same, the T signal is the same, the C signal is the same, the average signal is the same, but lo and behold, the A has changed from 548 to 469,548. Got any explanation for that?
No. Wow.
Yes, wow. Does that indicate to you, well, first of all, there's something wrong about that. Can we agree on that?
We can agree.
Do you have any idea how such a wrong thing has occurred? These supposed to be being the same document.
Well, they were printed 4 years apart from one another. So, it's not like one's a Xerox of the other. So
we can tell that because of that.
Yeah, yeah. So, I don't know. It's not. Oh.
Does that one perplex you?
Well, all of this whole idea of average signal has got me worried about what was going on.
On that day?
Or who knows for how long. But I don't believe it changes the diagnostic result, but it definitely is a problem.
Now let's go back up here to this. Do you see any place that 469 could have come from? Now, and let me tell you why I'm emphasizing the 469. The 548 is the same on both of them under A. So we've got the addition in front of the 548 on A, the number 469, which makes it read 469,548. Right now my question is, do you have any idea where that 469 came from?
No. No?
Do you know if it perhaps could have come from one of the other reads or one of the other embryos?
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
It is an interesting idea.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's...
If that happened, what would that tell you? If you saw that and went, gosh, this thing has picked up an A read off of another embryo, what would that tell you?
The computer's sick.
Would it throw into question your entire run?
I don't know that. On this sequence, I don't know.
Well, sitting here right now, because I've just sprung this on you. You said you've not seen this before, and I trust that you did not pick up on that before. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. Now that I'm asking you these questions about it, if you can do so, put yourself back into the clinical setting, and if you saw something like that pop up, and you had first of all, you go, like you did here, wow, what's that? And then you thought, gosh, that could actually be the computer picking up something off of another sample. Would it make you at least think about whether you wanted to just discard this whole run and start over again? Would you even consider that?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I don't know. I would be concerned, especially if the data were inconsistent with the other sequencing run.
Yeah. I guess I got to go back here, and I know that you're telling us that this was run off later than this black and white. Black and white done at the time. This was run off years later to send to us in this case, correct?
Yeah.
I apologize if one way or another, I asked this a few minutes ago, but I don't think I did, so the risk of repeating myself, I'm going to do it anyway. If all we know it's different is that this color version was run off some years later to send us in this case, you know how, if at all, that would account for this 469 getting stuck on there?
You mean just running it off later?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking. Thank you.
I don't know. It looks to me like there's a problem with that sequencer and its math calculations.
Okay. Pull up number 33, which is embryo 9. Black and white. Excuse me, that's 7. I apologize. Let me back up. Start over again. Pull up 35, which is the black and white on embryo 9 at 712.
Page Genesis is 09.
Mm-hmm. Pull this up for me, please. And as you know, embryo 9 was one of them that you rated as normal, called it a first choice for transfer, and I'm sure you do know it's one of them that was actually implanted.
Uh-huh.
Oh, agreed?
I think that's what I was told.
Yes. Again, going up here to this signal issue, you can see the G is 960, the A is 922, the T is 851, the C is 817, with an average signal of 888, which looks to be about right, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
And it is right. So that is the average signal. Now, I want you to pull up beside that the color version of number 9, which is your menu 36. And give me that same signal pull out. You'll see that on the color version, your G is the same, 960.
And the T changed.
So does the A, doesn't it? The A becomes the T.
Wow.
The C becomes the average signal. And the average signal says 2072. Is that another wow?
Excuse me?
Is that another wow?
Yeah.
Can you explain that one?
I can't explain any of this averaging business.
Are you becoming more concerned that there's something wrong with that computer?
I'm concerned there's something wrong with that part of its calculations. That's for sure.
Well, here, it calculates it correctly.
Yeah, it's an intermittent thing.
And here, you're getting something that you clearly can see is not only the same as that, 888 and 2072 is not the same. You can also tell that the average signal couldn't possibly be 2072 when all these numbers are under 1,000. Yes?
Correct.
Do you know why, this being the same, black and white to color, that the A is changed, the A, the T here becomes the A over here, the C here becomes the T over here, the average signal here becomes the C there, and then we've got this mysterious average signal added. Any possible idea as to how that happens?
No, I have no. This is
All right, then I'm gonna enhance your mystery for you a little bit. Yeah, give me the 712 one. I wanted 712, not 630.
Sorry, 712.
712 in Rio 8.
712, black and white. And then really?
You can see on the signal information, we've got G875, A446, T424, C327, and then it says average signal 2072, which I think you'll agree can't be the case because of these other numbers. Agreed?
Assuming that's what that number's supposed to be, that's correct. There's something.
Well, not as, forget what it's supposed to be. Yeah, well, you're right. If you assume that average
And I would think
signal
it, and I would think it should be because
Yes.
sometimes it gets it right.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, but I stand corrected. You are correct. Assuming that the average signal is supposed to represent those four, the average of those four, clearly that does not do so. Is that right?
Correct.
I will tell you, in this case, what it's done is it hasn't divided those four to get an average signal, it has added them up. And that's maybe the only time in this whole series that it does that. That if you add up 875, 446, 424, and 327, you get 2072. I'll ask you to assume that that's the correct math on if you add them.
Okay.
You can't explain that one either, can you?
No.
Now, if you look at the fact that it added those four on number 8 at 712, instead of averaging them, it added them and came up with a total of 2072. Now come back over here to number 9. Remember, we got off one, the A became the T, or the T became the A, and the C became the T, and the average signal became the C. We see this average signal of 2072 repeat itself in number 9, which is neither the average of those four numbers nor the sum of those four numbers. You can tell that easily by looking, can't you?
Yep.
Once again, no explanation for that?
No.
Is the concern deepening as to what this computer's doing?
On average signaling, if it is, yes.
Among the possibilities of why we have these unexplained signal data, would the possibility that somebody has sabotaged the information or manipulated it have to be on your suspect list? I know you've already said computer problem is on the list. Would somebody manipulating the information also be on your suspect list?
I hadn't thought about that.
Think about that.
Okay. I'll think about it.
Okay, well, think about it long enough to tell me an answer.
Well, anything's possible.
In other words, sitting
But
here
why?
now, and again, you're telling us that this is the first time you've realized this information is like this in these records. And so granted, this is something you haven't had time to flesh out and think through. Would you tell us, sitting here right now, the first two things that come to your mind to account for these discrepancies in the information would be, 1, computer malfunction, or 2, somebody humanly changing the numbers?
And maybe more, but I don't.
But those two would be on there, correct?
They would be on a list, I would think.
Yeah. And sitting here right now, you can't eliminate either one, can you?
I can't even think clearly about this at the moment.
Because you're so shocked at what you're seeing?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
That's 4 and 5, black and white, 630. Can I direct your attention? Are you looking at them?
Yeah, I was
Same
looking.
ones there?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you tell from looking at what you had in front of you or from looking at these if these are actually the same, 4 and 5?
They're the same. Well, they look very similar.
Can you tell any differences whatsoever in those two?
No.
In fact, just comparing the best way you can, do they appear to be identical?
They do.
If they are actually...
Well, wait now. So if I look at the peaks, they look exactly the same. But down where it says number 172, one of them's got 2 black boxes and the other one only has 1. But otherwise, they look exactly the
Can you
same.
tell that on? Can you tell that for sure on the black and white?
I can't see any other differences between the two at all. They look the same.
In fairness, there are some different letters. I don't know if you want to ask.
There is?
Bill, I'll swear you in when you decide to try to help the witness testify, but in the meantime, you can ask about it. And you might want to double check your letters. Is the similarity in those tracings of any concern to you?
Now that you point them out, yes.
And what is your concern about the similarity of those?
Well, 2 different pieces of DNA. Well, the tracings look exactly the same, but the box is different. The size standards are different.
What do you mean the size standards?
Or the numbers on the left on the y-axis. But everything else looks identical. Like the same sample was put into 2 tubes.
And that's
Or-
not supposed to happen, is it?
Well, no.
Does it, in fact, 4 and 5 look so identical that it raises the question in your mind that the same sample may have been put in 2 different tubes? Or same sample tested twice?
I think that's a possibility.
Do you think that's a probability looking at that?
I don't know about probability, but it's certainly on the list of, because I mean, I'd be surprised that 2 different pieces of DNA could produce something so similar. I don't understand why the tracings look so identical, but like, for example, the letters are different down here, and they're different here.
Where?
Well, like there's, that G is boxed out in one and not the other, and here, that's why I wanted to look at the color ones. But Something's wrong. You're right, they're too similar.
And is
But
the similarity of
like
those.
this one cuts off earlier than that one. I didn't know that, I've never done this kind of thing before. But I find it hard to imagine that I don't think two different samples can do this. The question is, can the same sample done twice do this?
All right, let's define what you just said. 4 and 5, in your opinion, cannot be from two different samples. The question that you've got is, can the same sample done twice be that close?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are differences, but they're
So-
not significant, yet the...
Would you agree, Doctor, that if you drew multiple samples from the same site, that it's going to look a lot alike, but you're going to see some insignificant subtle differences, such as you're describing as these differences here? You want me to start that over, break it
Yeah.
down into two questions?
Yeah.
I'll be glad to do that. If you drew from the same sample twice and tested it twice,
The samples are going to look incredibly similar.
but you would expect to see some subtle differences.
Uh-huh.
Yes?
I would think so.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. And and that's kind of what you're seeing here. It looks more like it's drawn from the same sample twice, with some subtle differences that are not significant. It's what it looks like, isn't it?
It's a possibility, yeah.
It's what it looks like to you, isn't it?
That's certainly worrisome.
Once you look at number 10, either on the transparency or on your copy, either way you want to do it, or both, and see if it does not appear that 10 is the same as 4 and 5.
No.
Well, I'll let you be the judge of that. Would you look at it and see?
What are the numbers again?
10 there. Don't mind me standing here. I'm not trying to bother you. I'm just trying to.
You got more to do on the transparency
Yeah.
machine, then that's probably where you need to stand.
Have you looked at 10?
No, I'm 10 at 6:30?
Yes, sir. When you look at 10 at 6:30, does it appear to be the same as 4 and 5 at 6:30?
Yes.
Now, without having to go back through all the questions that we've gone through about 4 and 5, number one, that bothers you, does it not?
It does.
Should not be that way, should it?
No.
Looks like it's drawn now three times from the same sample, doesn't it?
Yes.
And again, that would be the wrong thing to do. You don't do that, do you?
Well, no.
Okay. And if that's the case, now our numbering is off by even maybe 2.
Yep.
Okay. If indeed that is what happened, the same sample was drawn from 3 times, on which end did that happen? Your end of the clinic end.
I'm sorry?
If the same sample was drawn from 3 times, where did that occur? Did that occur in Memphis or did that occur in Michigan at the lab?
No, that would have happened in Michigan.
Okay. So that would have been something done at your lab that was an error.
Yeah.
Okay. having seen, as you have suggested to me a number of times, particularly this afternoon, that you are seeing this type of issue for the first time, given all these issues or problems that we've gone through here today that's in these records, would it be fair to say that you would not use this case as an example to show your peers of what good lab record standards would be?
I don't think I would put it that way, but I certainly wouldn't want to show my peers these data.
Has that happened in any other instances since ours? And let me tell you why. You told us it had happened once before, I think, in New Jersey, and then you did it with the Paules and us. Has that happened anymore where you declined requests for records?
Yes, yes. I'm not declining. I have an issue.
Ignoring, not complying, would those be accurate?
Well, when you spend your time in career trying to help people and then there is a bad outcome, you don't like to think about it. It makes you sick. And so it's easier for me to be an ostrich because I try to avoid pain.
I'm not asking you
So
why you did it. Right now I'm asking if you've done it again.
Yeah,
Okay, how many times?
one.
Where?
And then in New England.
In New England?
In New England,
Okay, what state?
Massachusetts.
When was that?
What do you mean when?
When was the,
It's sort of ongoing now.
but when were the?
We're not in a lawsuit, but they've asked for some records, and
You have not honored that.
I think we sent some, but they're coming to see us, so I have it all, a whole packet for them, so.
Okay, but that's the only time since ours that you've declined someone's request for records.
I'm not declining, I'm just ignoring.